Good afternoon, dear academics, scholars, researchers, participants from all over the world. We are pleased to start the second International Online Conference, Corpora and Discourse, organized by the National Technical University of Ukraine, Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and Lusofona University in Portugal. My name is Yulia Olisko. I'm an associate professor at Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute and your host for today. We are supposed to have 9 great speakers and discuss different aspects of language teaching, certification, and applied linguistics. Of course, unfortunately, there can be some changes as millions face blackouts in Ukraine, and we are so sorry about this. But just before we start, dear participants, give a warm welcome to our co-organizers from Lusofona University in Portugal, Ana Cunha and Anabela Mateus. They are both assistant professors of Languages and Translation Department in Portugal.
Thank you very much, Yulia, for inviting us to be here today and, of course, to collaborate with us in the organization of this amazing international conference. So as Yulia said, I'm Ana Cunha from Lusofona University in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm an assistant professor, and I also coordinate the Department for Languages and Translation. So we have more or less a student body of more than 1,500 students and 2,000 faculty, so professors. We have 2 different campuses nowadays, one located in Lisbon, so the capital for Portugal, and another one in Oporto. Again, thank you very much. Wish a very productive session to all the speakers and the participants. I will pass on the word to my colleague, Anabela Mateus. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. As my colleague said, I'm also a professor, assistant professor at Universidade Lusófona in Lisbon. Thank you very much for inviting us, for co-hosting this conference, which I think it's going to be very interesting because I was looking through the
I'm sorry, I guess it's a poor connection in the venue that Anabela is currently, right? Currently is. So she was taking a look at the program, and of course, on the speakers, we went to search for a short bio. So I think that it will be definitely a very enriched session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. So we encourage all participants to be active today and express any ideas, type comments, or ask any questions related to the topic of the presentation by asking directly or typing in our Zoom chat. So let's get it started. And our first speaker today is from the USA. Linda Egnatz is going to speak on the power of motivating pathways, and she will tell us more about the global seal of biliteracy. Linda, you are welcome.
Thank you. And I wonder if I can share some slides.
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, so. Can everyone see my slides?
Yes.
I always want to check to be sure. So what I really am excited about sharing with you are some ways to engage your learners, to get them more excited about why they're in your classrooms and why they're learning a language, or why they want to get better at the language instead of just get good enough to pass a course. So we really want to think about how do we motivate them, because the most exciting students to teach and the best classrooms to be in are those where the teacher is working with students that want to learn. And so we really have been looking at different ways to motivate language learners. And what we have found to work really well is to give them a reason that they care about. And that is something for their future, where they're connecting what they do in the classroom today with their future opportunities. And so what has happened in the United States over the past 10, 11, 12 years is a movement called a Seal of Biliteracy. And this is an outcome sort of exit award that has been given to students when they graduate from the secondary school programs. But it measures their language proficiency in 2 or maybe more languages. So the language of their schooling, whatever that school language might be, as well as an additional language. And that additional language might be something they learn in a classroom, or it might be a language that they learn because it's a home language or a heritage language or something they've learned on the internet if they care. So what we wanted to do was to think about creating pathways to achieve this award. And because this award is only limited to schools that participated, that chose to opt in, the Global Seal of Biliteracy was born as a way to open up this incredible motivating tool anywhere in the world to language learners. And it always begins with a test of their language proficiency. So it's not based on a grade, it's not based on how many years they took your course, but actually what they're able to do that we can measure in the language. So the test is not a fill in the blank. It isn't a multiple choice, although it would be probably for listening or reading, but really requires the students to actually speak in the language with their own material, their own ideas, as well as to write. And so what we can do with this is just powerful. And so the Global Seal of Biliteracy has 3 levels of certification, and that's for a reason. We want this to be stackable. We want students to continue their language learning. And so the first level of certification is functional fluency. That means that they can get by. They could survive a situation on their own. It won't be very pretty. They'll make lots of mistakes, but they can get their messages across and they can succeed. And in some job spaces, this is enough. If you have a basic, can answer basic frequently asked questions, you could give someone directions in a position, you could help them fill out a form. Sometimes that's enough in the career space. Our next level is working fluency. And then our third level is professional fluency. So we want them maybe as early as the sort of middle school years to be able to graduate maybe from primary school with that functional fluency, and then moving on toward working and professional fluency as they continue their language. The Global Seal has no age limits. We've had students as young as 11, and I think a gentleman that was 79 earn a Global Seal of Biliteracy. And it can be through a group application from your school, but also individuals may apply. And we do it based on testing through 2 approved scales, the ACFL scale, which is commonly used in the United States, and the CEFR scale, which is much more common in Europe and other places in the world. And we offer this certification for free. There's no charge for the certification or its benefits, only for the testing that you choose. And it's available in over 130 languages. So you can see that in all 50 United States, the Global Seal has been awarded, but this is a map of where we are in the rest of the world. So the dark green shows where Global Seals of Biliteracy have been issued, and the lighter sort of olive green shows where we have applications in process. We're waiting for test results or information from the schools. And so what we want to think about is that idea of testing. Testing oftentimes is what they do at the end, and then it becomes sort of a pass-fail. But if we bring learners into the language assessment, I guess you could, conversation, that's really helpful. Students need to know what it is that they need to do to level up, to improve. If they need to be at a B1 or a B2 level, for example, maybe for a job, they need to know what that means that they should be able to do. And so if you provide assessment or we call it, maybe assessment for learning. In other words, we provide them not just with a test, but with feedback that helps them know what they need to do to improve, as well as what did they do well. It gives us a tool to let them know where the student is on the pathway. And the Global Seal of Biliteracy test is a 4-skill test. And so it's wonderful for students to realize that, they may have a weak area, but they also have something they're really good at and really strong in. And that's really also motivating, but it gives them a good picture of where they can focus. Instead of saying to improve your mark, you have to study more, or do better on a test, we can say to improve your mark, to get a seal of biliteracy, you need to focus more on your writing skills and to be really specific what that might mean. The Global Seal of Biliteracy is a stackable, shareable credential. Shareable means that it has a serial number that can be digitally shared. So they can share it with a university, they can share their information with an employer, they can share it on social media or with their friends. It's stackable, which means that there's more than one level, and we want them to earn subsequent seals of biliteracy. They can, again, remember, apply on their own. So they could earn, for example, a Global Seal of Biliteracy in your language school program, but then they can also continue their language learning and get another level, maybe at the university or on their own. And lastly, it provides them with evidence for a job that they actually have language skills. There was a study recently done by LinkedIn in the United Kingdom that found that language skills was the #1 thing that people lied about on their LinkedIn profiles. And interestingly, they said it was more often men that would lie than women. But we thought, this is a way to document the skill. It's not just, this is what I think I can do. This is what I have proven I am able to do. And so to do that, you'll notice that this is a LinkedIn profile. And under the area licenses and certifications, you'll notice that the Global Seal of Biliteracy is there. So it's something you can add using that serial number to identify what your level was and what your global seal was. So it's more than just, I say I have skills, I have demonstrated them. And again, these can be earned by younger learners as well. And just lastly, to think about that pathway, the pathway includes ribbons for the levels prior to Global Seal certification. So we have ribbons at A1 and A2 on the CEFR scale. We also have ribbons on the ACTFL scale. And then our certifications are at B1 for functional fluency, B2 for working fluency, and C1 for professional fluency. So that kind of shares sort of the concept. It's very simple to begin and work with a Global Seal. We have an application process on our website, theglobalseal.com. The application is free and takes about 5 minutes. We just collect some information, contact information about you and your school. And then you choose the test. We have tests for as little as approximately $20 to $25 in US dollars or euros. And we have tests that are much more expensive. So that you can choose the test using our test finder for the languages that you want to test in. But these have all been approved by our independent board of advisors and vetted to show proficiency. But you will find both ACTFL as well as CEFR tests here that are available to you. And then we send to you the certificates with embossed seals, and that certification process is at no charge at all. Whatever costs are only the cost of testing, which you would pay to the test company you select. So that's it. But you want to take just a couple of minutes. If any of you have a question that you would like to ask, any information that perhaps I can share with you.
Thank you, dear Linda, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. Are there any questions? Where is the test valid? Like if we are in Europe, for example, where we can use the test?
So the test is the test. Actually, we have 47 different approved tests. Some tests are single language tests, but there are tests, for example, that are also just that would represent multiple languages. For example, one of the tests that is a brand new test by Avant assessment is for Ukrainian, and we see a number of countries now that are wanting to use a test like that to help support those refugees that they may have now in their school systems to determine you know, where they are in terms of languages. But we also see, for example, you know, the traditional test of a Cambridge test for English, for example, is also one of the qualifying tests. There are tests that you might need to go to a testing center to take, but we also offer some tests that can be taken with remote proctoring in the student's home or in your school, or you as the teacher can proctor as well. We work with multiple universities, not just here in the United States, but also in Asia and Latin America. And we have, and I think there's one as well in our African group. So I think, you know, so we see the testing is really up to you and the languages that you teach. And we do have that test finder that helps you locate tests in the languages that you would like to assess. Students do not need to be assessed in the language of school. Just your school documentation and transcript is sufficient for that first language, or what we refer to as dominant language for certification. And then the second language, or the learned language, in addition, is the one that would be tested.
Thank you so much. So dear participants, let's proceed with the next speaker.
Hello, welcome to my presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Hello,
Okay.
dear José Goris. She is a doctor of education from Redmond University in the Netherlands, and she's going to speak on using literature as a tool in English as a foreign language teaching classroom. You're welcome, dear José.
Okay, thank you. Well, I see it as an honor to speak on this conference today, and I will present a way of building language lessons around fragments from books in your English as a foreign language classroom. A few years ago, I obtained a doctorate at Nijmegen University in the Netherlands for my research into CLIL, which means Content and Language Integrated Learning. Using literature in your English lesson is not really CLIL, but it's a kind of content and language integrated learning, because you tell about an author and you let them read books, and at the same time you teach language. So this is how you go about it. You have to select a fragment from a book that you think will appeal to the students, depending on their level, of course. The level I aim at is intermediate or advanced, so B2 or C1. I often hear teachers complain that students don't read anymore and young people don't care about books. But this is a good way to introduce them to a number of authors, and it may be surprising how they start becoming avid readers. I'll show you a fragment from which I use, hopefully with this works. Let me see. Can you see this?
Not yet, not yet. We need to share the screen.
Yes, okay. I'll try again. Yeah, okay. Can you
yes.
see my fragment now?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. So for this kind of exercise, I've chosen a fragment, a not so difficult author. So this is for B2, I would say. Stan Barstow. He has a very direct way of writing, so a lot of dialogue, which you can see and which is not very difficult to read. Now, the best thing is to ask your students to read it at home beforehand, because reading it in the lesson is perhaps a bit time consuming. So it's a fragment about this length. And then my aim, you have to decide on a lesson aim. The lesson aim was vocabulary. And what sort of vocabulary? Vocabulary describing traits, character traits of people, because we have here a dialogue between a father and a son, which is very direct. We get to know a lot about these two. So it's an ideal fragment to start studying character traits. So what you do is draw up a list of words which you want them to learn. And instead of saying, learn these words by heart, you start relating them to the fragment. So you ask them to describe the characters in terms of what they are. You start asking, is Weston, that's the father, is he sharp-tongued? And make sure that the students know the word or understand what you mean. And they can talk together about what they think. Is that true? Is he sharp-tongued, and why? Is he talkative? Motivate your answer. So this is a very good exercise for spoken fluency also. And then about Joby, the boy, what's he like? And that they can motivate their answers by the text. So that's the fluency and the vocabulary which you have. You can let them work in small groups because it's less scary for students if they can talk in small groups instead of in front of a whole classroom. So that's an additional benefit of this type of work. You might want to let them do a written assignment. Now, for this one, you could ask learners to write, for instance, it's only an instance, you can use your own creativity. Write a letter from Joby to his mother, who's in hospital, and let learners choose Joby's perspective. Does he keep a stiff upper lip? Everything's fine here at home. Does he write an emphatic letter to his mother? So this must be very hard for you. Or an emotional letter. I miss you so much. So make them choose a perspective. And apart from the language goal, this is also an example of how learners can get to know a writer, because they might think, oh, that's not a very difficult writer. I might choose works from him for my list. So that's one. This needs one text. Now I'll let you show another one. I hope this also goes well. Yes, can you read Boys at School?
Yes. Yes. Boys at School, we can see.
Yes, so this is for the more advanced students. Let me say the level C1. It's more difficult authors. James Joyce is a very difficult author, yet it's very good to let students get to know this author. And the second fragment is from Charles Dickens. I've chosen two fragments with an overarching theme, both about boys at school. It's also a way of getting to know a culture. They were written about 1900, and that's quite a different era. It may be nice to see what life at school was then, which was not always a complete joy, as you will see. So you let them read those also at home, probably, if you have, if they have time to do that, to prepare it for the lesson. So one fragment from James Joyce, and then the other one from Charles Dickens, also about a boy at school who isn't very happy. And then the assignment is a bit more complicated, because now we have two novels. You let them read a number of sentences from the sequel of these fragments, like here, one. And then they have to decide from which book it is. So they have really to concentrate on the style of writing and on the contents of the novel. They have to fill in, I think this is from a portrait or from Oliver Twist. And then after they fill in all the sentences, they have to put them in the right order. And as a written assignment, you could do also a creative exercise. Write a sequel. How do you think this story continues? So they have to use their own imagination, and can use the sentences which they have placed in position. So this is also a way of working. The next one I have is an exercise for you, an assignment for all of you. Let me see.
Okay.
I can give you the answers also. If you decide to use it in your lesson, you can have the keys. Here we get a dialogue for you. Can you see it? Dialogue?
Yes.
Yes. Well, please, can you read this? I don't know if you can interact or.
Yes, yes, sure. Let's read.
Yeah.
I'm glad we came out together. I say, you are not disappointed then? She says, and I feel like gaping at her, disappointed. Perhaps you'd like to try it again. I say, what about the weekend? If you like. And what if I don't like? Does it matter to her either way? What's a kiss on the back row of the pictures after all? It doesn't mean we've signed an agreement or something. To no, need to if you don't want, I say. And I'm horrified at the way I'm inviting her to turn me down. I'd love to, she says.
So, and that was your assignment to answer the question, who are the speakers? And if you do this in the classroom, you can again let students interact with in small groups.
So yeah, maybe we can try with our participants today. Who can answer the first question?
Yes, you can try. You may.
Let's try, yeah.
So who are these speakers, do you think? Where are they and what's their relationship?
They're a couple. Are
Yes.
they?
Are they? Really?
Probably.
Yeah. Well, he
Yeah.
hopes to be the boy. Are they boys, girls? What do you think?
That's a very tricky question.
Yes, it is, especially in this time.
One of
But
them.
it was written a long time ago, before we had this.
One of them is a girl, obviously, because we have. She says.
Yeah, we say she. But you would say, without making it very difficult, that the other one is a boy in the traditional world?
Most probably a boy.
Yes. Yes. And where are they, do you think?
At home.
Yes.
No, they are. She said, I'm glad we came out together. So probably they may be on restaurants or maybe in the cinema or in the theater, something like this.
Yes.
I guess it's a couple more, maybe lovers, but not a married couple.
Yes. Yes. That's right.
Because there's the phrase, it doesn't mean we have signed an agreement or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yes, no, that's correct. They haven't signed an agreement.
Okay, and the last question.
What's their relationship, do you think?
Dating or about to date with each other, so yeah.
Yes, that's right. The boy, indeed, it's a boy and a girl. And again, this is from a book by Stan Barstow. So this first author I told you about, who's always, he writes about people and he lets people do their say. The boy hopes to win the favor of a girl. So they have a date, they have a date. And he hopes he can have a date again with her so that she isn't disappointed. Yes, that's right. So if you want this kind of exercise, I have a whole lot more dialogues. It's quite simple, in fact. So you choose a small dialogue from a book, and it's an idea to get students thinking and interacting. And in my experience, they remember things better than if you don't let them talk about it. So if they have to do it at home all by themselves, they forget everything. But in interaction with other students, it sticks to their mind a lot better. So, well, this is about all I want to present. I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, do you have any questions? Thank you. It's an amazing presentation, great report. So do we have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. It's very exciting and involving students to work, to speak. And I wonder, do you take small stories or you take parts of novels, which you then encourage students to read at home, to finish reading at home?
Yes, that's right. They're mostly from novels, which I hope they will read for their list or for their language portfolio or whatever the requirements of your school are. And it works. I've experienced that it works. If you want exercises, you can always email me and I can send them to you.
Yes, we will definitely email. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do we have more questions?
And I also, can I comment? And I also like the fact that you give them a writing assignment. After all, they can write something like an essay, or like giving the feedback about the plot, yeah, or their thoughts about what they have just read. And also, it can be a productive task, and I really like it. Makes students only talk and then reconsider everything.
Mm-hmm. They can use their own creativity, and that's also very important for young people. They can use their imagination and then compare what the novel in fact is. They can compare their own writing to the novel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, José, so could you please stop sharing the screen?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So, thank you. So let's give the floor to the next speaker, my colleague from Ukraine. Just a second. So let's give the floor to Alla Kondrashova. She is a lecturer at Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and she's going to speak on meaningful writing in heterogeneous classes.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to have this opportunity, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak in such a difficult time, especially due to blackouts and lack of electricity. So that's like, even more pleasure than it used to be. As you may see the topic, I would like to share the screen. Okay. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk about writing. In the light of blackouts and electricity issues that we are experiencing right now in Ukraine, I think that all my Ukrainian colleagues and teachers will support me. This comes I mean, writing comes as the most relevant and the most realistic skill that we can master with our students, because this kind of task can be performed offline. This kind of task can be set for our students on platform. They can get access to the task whenever it is convenient for them, when they have electricity or not. So that's the reality. And writing. Writing. If I ask you whether your students like to do writing, most of you tell that they are reluctant, they are unwilling to do the writing, and if it is possibility to skip it, they will always skip it. And this kind of picture maybe reflects the idea and the attitude of our students to writing itself. So when we ask them, maybe you will write a little bit, they will say, yeah, first of all, I don't know what to say. And the other reason, you know everything. The problem, the thing that I would like also to discuss with you, it's the sorry. So we have different, we have heterogeneous classes, and I want you to answer, what is it? How do you understand this meaning? If you can have some ideas, you can share with me in chat. What does it mean, heterogeneous class?
Students have a different level of English.
Yeah, different level of English, not only level. So class that is varied in, and it could be level of English. It's only one thing that could be different in our students. What else could be? You can see here.
The so-called mixed ability group.
Yeah, mixed ability groups. So you can see here what can be different. So we are talking about level of English. We are talking about the interest, needs, motivation, everything here you can read. And I have added, in light of the situation that we are experiencing in Ukraine, the different access to teaching tools due to blackouts. It also could be like part of heterogeneous class. So challenges for teachers. Okay, what the question also for you, not to make it more interactive, what kind of challenges you face? I think all of us have this situation with the different ability classes, with the different level of English, with the no interest, no motivation students, and all the rest. What are the great challenges for you? What it might be? Okay, so
yeah, for example, there are some hyperactive students who do everything quickly, and so other students are just reluctant and they don't want to be engaged in the task because like everything is done by somebody else, and they get used.
Yeah, that's exactly the first. You can see here pace, different pace of studying, different pace of learning material, and so the challenges, it's probably what challenges you can see here, that's our challenges for us as the teachers. So when we have different ability and different level of English, we need more time to prepare for a lesson, because for stronger students, we need more task. For the weaker, we have to adapt the task to make this task possible for them to complete. Assessment, it also could be a great challenge for us as the teachers, especially when we talk about writing assignments. So when we give writing for them, and again, when we talk about the present situation in Ukraine, writing is the most valid form of education as it appears. So we have a lot of tasks that should be checked, and we have to do it. We have grade groups up to 30 students, and every week we have to do it. It's a challenge for us as well. Why we talk about writing as a difficult task? As you can see here, I will let you read this definition of writing. It's a productive skill, as you have mentioned already, and it's the most difficult task in exam, writing and speaking. And writing, it's something that accumulates everything that you have already learned, have already acquired, and you have to then reproduce it in written form or texted. Most often texted, because the present times all students type, and that's why writing is a challenge. So there are different approaches to teach writing. It's a product oriented, when we have a template, a model text that is written, and we give this model to students to read, and then they imbibe this model into their writing, and then we will get the result. So the good resource and the good example of this product-oriented writing you may find in British Council, and I'm sure that you know a lot of other resources where you can find a template that will be relevant to the task, will be relevant to the exam requirements and everything else. The other approach is, can we change slides?
Nope.
No. Okay. Yeah. So we can. Process oriented. So this is the approach when we mostly concentrate on the process of writing, when we dive into the language, when we get excited from the structures we use, and we expand the vocabulary, we expand the lexis. And so here, most important thing that we have to admit that we enjoy the process of writing. It's not about the students of technical university, unfortunately, but nevertheless. So also I have come across interesting site, Grammar Girl. It's like combination of listening and listening about writing. So it's a set of podcasts. You can listen how to write. It's an interesting tool. And the last modern approach, and actually that we use this exactly approach, the combination of the process-oriented and the product-oriented, when we try to teach our students how to communicate with readers, and we teach our students to accomplish specific purpose. For example, when we talk about engineers and future programmers, we try to teach them how to write CV, how to write a letter of application, how to write any types of business emails. So that's the tasks they have to know after they finish the university. As to the site again, because I've given you some examples of the site that you can correspond to the product-oriented, process-oriented, and this is Write and Improve. Okay, you can let me know. Have you ever tried this site with your students? And I hope most of you have ever done this. You can just give me a plus in the chat to let me know. So have you ever tried this node?
I don't know how it's called, but
Write and Improve. So this is the name of the site.
And yeah, I see, I understand, but I know that there is a website in which students can anonymously write something like messages, and they appear on the screen. and they can analyze what they have written, like sentences or passages. I don't know. It's website, but I forgot its name.
Yeah, okay, that's the site. This not exactly messages. So all types of writing you can type there. So it is divided. I will tell you a little bit later. So write and improve. This is the site. This is the link. You can follow this. So benefits of this site, a lot of them. Simple interface, and you can just, it's free. Except test zones, there are 3 zones. Except test zone, it's a free. Learners can just write without any registration, and they can choose the level they are. Accessible to all levels and abilities. Is in terms of heterogeneous classes, it's also a very important issue, because if you have students of different levels, they can choose the level they are and practice their writing on the platform and give a feedback right away. Sorry. Wide range of subjects. It's also important because we are working on with different textbooks, and it's important to be in touch with the topic we are currently on. So what also very important, instant feedback. So you just choose the type of writing you need, you submit your writing there, and then you see a feedback that provides you a system. So writing the proof, it's a platform that uses artificial intelligence. It means that this site is constantly improving itself. So this is the interface at the first page of the site. When you enter the site, you will see this picture. What I mean about the free zone. So this exactly arrow shows you the beginners, intermediate and advanced, and business, and just for fun. It means that there are 280 tasks there. You can choose a task. For example, it could be email, it could be report, it could be review, it could be a paragraph, whatever. So actually they are more related and more based on exam preparation. This is a part test zone that I've mentioned that is not for free. So exactly preparation for IELTS academic and B2 exam, and if you need this kind of preparation, you have to pay for that. So that's, I also can skip this. So how does it look? You you give the task, receive a task. For example, you open the task. Not good. What kind of music do you like? Who's your favorite band? And how many of the albums do you have? So you have to write an email and 25 words. So just was a simple task for beginners. Then you, here in this box, you submit your task. And in this part, you will receive a feedback of the system. And then system tells you, was your writing good? And was your writing, and what level is your writing? And if it is, if you have made some grammar mistakes, you will notice this. The system will show you. So what is interesting that you can, even after getting feedback, you can correct your writing and submit it once again, and the system will check it again. And you can do it as many times as you need in order to make your writing ideal, finally, that will be accepted by the system. So if you, I will just recommend you to use it, because you can do it even like, I don't have to organize a different class, because it also has a possibility to organize a class on this platform. You can ask your students, you can choose for them the tasks, they can make the writing and then just take a screenshot and submit it on Google Classroom like a separate task. And then you will see that all your students have completed the writing task. And again, return to heterogeneous classes and the options. What are the best options for practicing writing? It's open-ended task, not only in terms of writing, but in terms of vocabulary and reading all possible aspects. It should be open-ended task. Unfortunately, it's easy for teachers, and well, our students also get accustomed to close-ended tasks. But when you give this space for creativity, to reflection, well, everyone with different abilities can somehow express themselves. So this is the first advantages of this. Possible answers at different levels. It could be compulsory and optional at the same time, because you have set the topic, but there are a lot of ways to express. And also you can tailor this task to the need and to the interest of each of your students. So what can you do to help your strongest students, and the other options for support to support weaker students? You can see here the options. Well, I go through them very quickly. You can give creative tasks that students can do on their own level. You can ask them to use vocabulary and collocation of the given unit. Actually, I practice this with my students. I ask them to use, for example, 10 words and collocations that we have covered in the unit, and in their writing, I ask them to use this and underline. It will be easier for me to spot, and it's actually the more challenging for them to complete this task, because they have to somehow feed this kind of word or collocation into the meaning of the sentence. And the other also possible task for them to ask them to self-correct their writing using the correction code. It could be simple, like SP for spelling, GR for grammar, or exam related, 4 letters, C for content, CA communicative achievement, or organization, or L language. So if you have covered with them, we have discussed this. If you are there or your students are interested in passing exam, you can use this exactly code. And increase the word limit, also a good effective tool. For support, to support weaker students, it's like to reduce, very simple. You can encourage them to use dictionary. Of course, very important for weaker students to give frames to show the layout of the writing. And sometimes before completing the writings, if you have this possibility, if you still have electricity and you have a lot of students in your Zoom class, you can discuss how to write, or maybe brainstorm some ideas to help the weaker students to cope with the task. And now I'm going to just to show a couple of examples that I have made using these advices. So these are our textbooks that we are working on with our students. Speak Out for the first and the second year students, and Oxford English for Computing for the third and the fourth year students. So I will give you 2 tasks. So this kind of task that was taken from Unit 3, Oxford English for Computing. You can see the task. So the task just to write a short paragraph to show the difference between analog and digital transmission. This task was given after a short description, what is it, analog and digital transmission, and then students get this task to complete. What can be done and what can be done for stronger students? So that's my advice, for example, to ask them to follow the link, to expand a little bit the vocabulary, to see the table where you can see the comparison, what is it, analog and digital transmission. And then you can ask them to make like a conclusion, to draw a conclusion where this analog signal can be used, can be appropriate to apply today, take into account the digitalization we're experiencing right now, a digital signals that and digital transmission that is almost replace the analog signal. For the Wiki students, I would recommend to follow the same link, to analyze the same table, but I would ask them to write the most obvious difference between analog and digital transmission up to them, so they can choose, and it could be absolutely different 5 difference for each Wiki students. And this example from Speak Out, also Unit 7 page you can see. So the task you can see, students should write their own story. You can see the time word limit up to 180 words. And they should write story about their experience and achievements and to submit to website. And also there is a task to use words that was presented in the previous task. What we can propose for stronger students? We can very simple increase the word limit. So it could be up to 250 words. Also, we can ask them to use vocabulary of the unit. You can see the example of the vocabulary. The unit is dedicated to success, and you can see the words. And there are a lot of them, up to 10 probably. And also the same, when they use these words, ask them to underline. You will see them after checking the task. For Wiki students, sometimes the most often answer when I ask my low-level students to write something, they don't know what to write, so they lack ideas. And in this case, the best decision I see just to ask them to find the story. It could be any internet resource, just to Google the information about any famous person and write about his or her story of success. The only thing that you have to ask and insist on, just not to copy the text that they are reading, paraphrase a little bit, and for lower students, for Wiki students, you have to ask to use these phrases that have been mentioned in the previous task. And you also can reduce the word limit, one of the options. So just to sum up, well, writing, I will finish like this. I think that's the life we live in, and the writing will save us. Of course, it's a overload of checking, I understand, but the studying process is going on, and we as the teachers have to support our students as much as possible, and we just give them the options to keep up the level they have and even master the English they have. At least writing, they will be perfect. And also like to finish, so how our students see a lot of writing tasks they receive and how happy they are when they see the following tasks to complete. So thank you. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, there is a question in our Zoom chart. Are students' texts checked automatically?
Just good.
Are the tests checked automatically?
Yeah. So if you're talking about write and approve, yeah.
Probably the question is related to the applications that were shared.
Write and approve, yeah. Yeah, this grammar is checking out automatically. The system use different colors for different mistakes, and if you see grammar mistake, you can see like a cross with this mistake. You can type or just click on this cross and you will see what is wrong with this word, and you can correct it. The same is lexical mistake also can be done. Again, I have never done it with my students. So if students submit writing task and there are a lot of mistakes, they can correct themselves. It's again self-correction, and then submit this task again, and the system again check it. And if it's done, for example, several times, it will be finally the perfect result.
Okay. Dear participants, do we have more questions?
They're written in the chat.
Yes, they're written. Okay. What's the daily word limit at elementary level?
Daily word limit. I don't understand, what does it mean, daily word limit at elementary level?
Maybe could you please clarify your question?
You writing on elementary limit or daily what? Daily speaking? I don't know.
I guess how many words in an essay could be written like for free a day? Like how long should the essay be?
It's elementary. We must teach daily. How many words we must teach daily? I don't know. It depends on the level of the group you have, or on your inspiration you have. For example, sometimes you can give your students more than 50. I don't know. So it's obvious if you have low-level students. I think it's clearly that it could be like 10 words per day. But we are talking about university students, and unfortunately we have one class a week, and we are not talking about daily studying. Daily could be done on their own.
Okay, thank you for your helpful report. And yeah, we would like to proceed with the next speaker. Yes, thank you. Iryna Prysiazhniuk has just completed her TESOL certification, and she is eager to share her experience with us. That's why it would be interesting to know her feedback on online TESOL certification. And Iryna is also from Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute. She is our lecturer. Iryna, the floor is yours.
Hello, that's me. 1 second, I'll share. I cannot share the screen.
Yes, it's possible now. Yeah.
1 second. So I'd like to share my feedback on TESOL certification. Actually, when the war started, our students missed a lot of classes because of war, because the classes were canceled, and our faculty created a list of Coursera courses which they can do in order to gain the marks which they lost. And I decided to check whether there is something for teachers to update our knowledge, my knowledge, and to see how it works actually for students and for teachers as well. So I decided to do this TESOL, to receive this TESOL certificate because it's internationally accepted. And I think it might be useful not only in Ukraine and in other countries as well. So one second. So this course actually consists of two parts. This is, well, they are specializations, and here are the links. This is a 150-hour course. Yeah, it greatly changes your teaching philosophy. It changes your understanding how to plan your lessons and classes to make it interesting, involving, entertaining for students, and how to make them remember and use what they learned at the lesson. So you can enroll. Yeah, I'm already enrolled, so I couldn't I couldn't make a print screen of another button. It's usually written like apply, or you can apply for financial aid for Ukraine is free, but you need to apply for this financial aid. But they like consider it for 2 weeks, so you will need to wait. And this course actually consists of 8 courses, and that's over here. Both specializations have 4 courses. This is the first one, first specialization. This is the second one. And you need to apply for each course. And each time you will need to wait for 2 weeks. So actually you can do it right on the spot, immediately, only once, and wait for like this 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, all these courses will be open to you. So the first course, it just explains the basic notions which each teacher needs to know, like effective filter, like the use of body language, how to reduce the level of stress that students have, how to use scaffolds, and so on. So the second course is about theories of second language acquisition. They like get you acquainted with the approaches which teachers used have used within the last 100 years. Some of them are not used now, but like some tasks might be used by modern teachers as well. Then these 2 courses are rather theoretical. They introduce you to the like understanding of teachers' work. But the third course is already the lesson design, and it like it teaches us how to plan and make our lesson, how much time to spend for instruction and how much time should be spent for like practical work of students, for guided practice and for independent practice. That's actually how it looks like. This is the lesson plan which teachers are supposed to use. Yeah, we well, in Ukraine we used some lesson plans which look a bit different. Yeah, they don't have such a structure, which is why for me it was interesting. It was unusual to see such a lesson plan. And the first specialization ends with the capstone project. This one is purely applied. You need to use all knowledge which you gained from previous 3 courses, and you will have, you will have 6 hours of observation of teachers at Arizona State University. By the way, I forgot to mention that this course is from Arizona State University, and you will observe teachers, instructors at ASU, how they perform. You will give feedback, you will create your own teaching philosophy. You will create a 5-day lesson plan for every day. They should be linked with the same like topic or continue each other. And you will submit your own video of teaching. It can be your real lesson, or it can be a mock lesson. And all tasks which you have in these courses, they are peer reviewed. The course, each course consists of lectures, and first everything is exemplified, then everything is explained. So it's quite clear. This is for even like beginner teachers, yeah, who know English, but they haven't tried teaching at all. And I think it's really effective. Then the second specialization, one second, I'll go back. So the second specialization is really applied. They like introduce you to the knowledge of they teach you how to teach reading skill, writing, listening, speaking, all these 4 skills of language, and also incorporate grammar and incorporate pronunciation. So actually that's what Mrs. Goris mentioned. It was also explained in this course to teach reading and writing. There is extensive and intensive reading, and you can focus on vocabulary, and then you can encourage students to read more, and you can incorporate grammar, because teachers usually, well, not usually, but sometimes teachers like skip some grammar, or they find it difficult to focus only on grammar because students find it quite boring. So, and they explain how to do it all together to make it interesting for them. And the most useful for me was technology enriched teaching, this course, because they introduced not only the notion of technology, they explained the whole system, how it all works. They introduce you not only to the world of technology, which technology should be used in order not to support your lesson, but to redefine and modify your lesson, to change it in such a way that previously it was impossible to do some tasks without technology. And what I liked more is when you do something in class, you learn some topic, some vocabulary. In the end, you can make students do a productive task, like you can make create a voice record, for example, or a video record, given a feedback, or create some make some creative assignment, like using the camera, for example. So it also can be applied, but it demands some creativity from the student. And the last one and the most challenging course is capstone, the second capstone project. It's the most challenging because you need to not only need to apply all your knowledge which you gained, but you will need to do a lot of work. Because you will need to submit, you can see what you will need to submit. So teaching philosophy, it's like a Word document, it's a file where you explain like what is your purpose of teaching, what are your short and long-term goals, what is your approach in teaching, how you teach students, how you motivate them. Also, you need to submit teaching tips, these kind of assignments, activities which all teachers can use to like fulfill their toolbox, teacher's toolbox. Then you'll create 10 different lesson plans, and you will have to submit 10 videos of your lessons. Again, they can be real, they can be mock lessons. And the most pleasant thing that this capstone project actually is actually expert review. So teachers from Arizona State University, they really do a great job. They check everything and they give real feedback. They explain if you did something wrong, they explain what you did wrong. If you if your performance was brilliant, they praise you, they say like it is, so that you did a great job. I really appreciated that, and I really liked that. And what I think that we really need to I would like to motivate you to complete this course, because it really changes the way you think about teaching. So these are my insights after completing this course. So it seems to me that we need to give more time for guided and independent practice at lessons. So we forget that teaching and instructing students should be only 20% of all time. The other 80% should be their independent and guided practice. Guided means like teacher helps students to do some tasks. It is discussed with the teacher. And independent practice, that's when students actually apply the knowledge which they gained at this class, at this lesson, in groups, in pairs, or individually. There is also formative and summative assessment. So formative assessment when we don't actually grade students, and summative assessment when we give a mark for the task. We got used to the fact that we need to assess students at every lesson. They need to gain some marks, right? And it turns out they usually gain marks for activity rather than knowledge. So it seems to me if we gave them formative assessment, that's like feedback on their performance, and then in a couple of lessons gave them some productive task like writing or speaking or making presentation, it will motivate them more. But it requires more teaching, more teachers, well, not preparation, but time for checking everything. Then there should be a clear rubric before, clear rubric before the writing task, because I'll give you an example. I taught students how to write a CV. We spent 2 lessons on explaining everything, the structure, the vocabulary, skills, soft skills, hard skills, and so on. And I thought that was clear for them how to write the CV. I even gave them the template. I gave them the structure, everything, but not many of them did the task successfully. But the next time when we discussed the letter of application, and I gave them the clear rubric, when I described what should be the structure, what vocabulary they should use, at which pages should they look at these phrases, actually everything, and what will I pay attention to when I grade, it was more successful. So almost all of them completed the tasks successfully. Then the next one, technology makes a difference. Really, we have online studies, and some of the students, well, all of the students actually work with turned off cameras, you know, and maybe some of them are really absent, we don't know that, but each time when we have a class with technology, they are involved. Some of them simply, I wouldn't say that they don't like speaking, they are afraid of speaking, but they like writing something, either in chats or on websites or in applications. So it makes them be involved, and I can see that they are present and they work at the lesson. Then flipped classroom. I really like this idea because if you remember that we need to spend 20% of time teaching and instructing, and when you start explaining the new grammar topic, it takes much more time. But if students are given the rules to read at home, they can successfully do it, they can read, right? And do some exercises, and then we can discuss their mistakes and any questions that they have at the lesson. It saves time, it produces discussion, and it seems to me it is more effective. And the last one, that pronunciation is the biggest challenge. I know that a lot of teachers really skip this pronunciation minutes, to teach students how to spell the words and not spell to say the words correctly, and don't pay great attention to this. And the biggest challenge is to prepare the lesson, which is based on this pronunciation. So 1 hour of teaching pronunciation is really difficult. Well, these were my insights. And I hope it was useful for you. I hope it would motivate you to also complete this course, because it upgrades our knowledge, and it seems to me we can use as a team this knowledge in order to improve our teaching process and like the study process for students together. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.
In chat was a question about the price.
It's free of charge for Ukraine. You need to apply for financial aid and wait for the response for 2 weeks, but they usually provide this financial aid.
What about peer review? Was it a kind of components of this course?
Yes, peer review is, well, you have the assignments in each course. Each course is separated into modules, and in each module you have the assignment which you need to submit. And there are a lot of people who study, and teachers from Arizona State University, they cannot check everything. So all assignments which we submit are checked by our peers, by our colleagues who also decide to do this course. But it is really effective. So even teachers, they say that peers, they don't assess the quality. They assess like if there are all components like present in the assignment which teachers require. And it helps because you will pass all these, well, almost all of these tasks to teachers for expert review, and then they will grade everything you have done.
Alina?
Much for sharing your experience and for sharing your valuable insight. It was really inspiring and motivating, I'm sure, for most of the participants, for everyone who was watching your presentation. And I do have several questions. Well, first of all, is it applicable for ESP? Can we, for example, create those mock lessons or real lessons for ESP, or it is only for general English? And the second is, what was actually the most challenging, the most difficult parts in taking this course?
Yeah, actually, it's applicable. Thank you for the question. It's applicable for ESP. I developed lesson plans for business English. So I took the books, like you can take any materials, so you just need to like state them in the lesson plan, the literature which you take. And of course, it can be used for ESP, for our chemistry students. For example, I teach to chemists. I did business English, so not only general. General, it's really applicable and it's very easy, yeah, because there are a lot of assignments in the network to find. But it can be done for any types of students. And what was challenging, as I said, it was pronunciation, to create a pronunciation lesson, because we are not used to like teaching pronunciation. We just check students' pronunciation in situation when they ask, when they say something incorrectly, but we don't actually teach. And what was also challenging is filming and making these videos, because when you teach, you do it once, but when you like record a video, it needs to be ideal. So it was a lot of repetition, and like to receive the ideal variant. For me, it was video, recording of video.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you for attention.
So let's continue. Now we will watch a short video from the next presenter. Due to the time difference, Nick submitted his video, and Nick works at Avant assessment. He's from the USA. I with my students have already tried the pilot test they developed. And in the video, he is going to speak about the peculiarities of the test, why it's special, why it's unusual, because there were 38 questions and they were not for one level, but the difficulty increased step by step. So this is interesting, and the students were really satisfied with the test and found it interesting. So let's listen to the instructions and to some information about the test. And if you like, you can try with your student, you can get in touch with Nick and you can try with your students. So let's let's watch.
So at Avant, we like to look at assessment, and not just assessment for one reason, but we look at it as part of a process of assessing, analyzing that assessment, accelerating our teaching and learning, and then achieving, so that our students can really get those credentials they need to go on in their lives. So today I'm going to talk to you about the test we're developing, an English CEFR-based test. A number of our tests currently we have at Avant are based off of the ACTFL scale, which is a scale used in the primarily in the United States and North America. We are starting to move towards putting our test also on the CEFR scale. Our main test is called the STAMP. It's an acronym for Standardized Measurement of Proficiency. And the test is aligned to the CEFR scale. It will provide ratings from A1 up to C1 in 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. The test is developed with language experts and item writing experts, and it's reviewed by a panel of language experts particular to the language and who are particular to the CEFR scale to assure we're aligning ourselves appropriately to the different levels. Part of that is pilot testing. All good tests, well-researched tests have pilot testing. We're currently piloting 2 of the skills, and those are the ones that really need the pilot testing. The writing and speaking need to be normed with our raters, but the reading and listening, because of the nature of the multiple choice, should be piloted. So we're currently doing that. Each of the tests have 39 questions on them. Our pilot test is linear, meaning that test takers get questions from all levels, from A1 up to C1. But our live test, one thing that makes our test different is that it is adaptive. And so test takers will only get questions that they can actually answer that gives us an accurate reading of their abilities. So instead of getting 39 questions at all different levels, they'll get 30 questions at levels based on how they're performing. So the test will adapt to them. But that'll be in the live test, which will come out later in 2023. For our pilot test, we're looking at over 1,000 test takers in 30 different countries. This gives us a really good geographic spread, because we have to pilot in the areas where the test will be used. So that's going to be non-native speakers of English around the world. So that's what we're trying to do with this pilot test. Ages 13 and up. So these will be your secondary students, all the way up through your college and university, all the way up through adults. And so our test takers represent those populations as well, because that's where the test will be used. Then, of course, we have people in beginner all the way through advanced levels of English, because, again, we pilot the population that will be using the test. And so once we have the 1,000 or so test takers split across these different age levels and language proficiency levels, we'll be able to run statistical analysis to decide which items we keep and which items we modify and save maybe for another pilot or to put into a pool of items. A special thank you to all of our pilot testing groups, especially Igor Sikorsky, Kiev Polytechnic Institute in Ukraine, who also is putting on this conference. So we really appreciate your students' time and your faculty's time in helping with this pilot test. It's always great to have our students take part in these types of projects, because they really can get an understanding once they get some results of how they're doing in the language. Just to show you a little bit about the test, our tests are proficiency based. We tend to use realia and authentic materials as much as possible. This is just a practice question because I don't want to put a live question in a presentation because it could impact the validity of that item if it has too much exposure. So this is just a practice question, a very low level practice question, but you can see it's multiple choice and it provides the student opportunities to select an answer that they find most appropriate. The listening question, of course, we won't be able to hear it because it isn't audio. Test takers are allowed to play the audio 2 times per question. Some audios have multiple questions, but the questions come one at a time, so the student and test taker do not know if the next question is going to be a question from the same audio or a different audio. So they listen to it 2 times and they select an answer. The reason they listen to it only twice is that we're really trying to create a test that's as authentic as possible, that is as spontaneous as possible. And so in the real world, we wouldn't be able to ask people to repeat things multiple times. So we're trying to recreate that in the test. So that's what the reading and listening look like. The writing and speaking, again, not part of the pilot. They're part of our norming part, which our raters are doing with trainers from CEFR to make sure that we align those appropriately. As we look further with this development, again, we're doing all 4 skills for the English test. 2 are being piloted, 2 are being norm referenced, so I apologize for that mistake there. We are looking to have over 40 languages that we currently offer on the ACTFL scale to be offered on the CEFR scale in writing and speaking. That includes multiple languages from Europe, including Czech, Armenian, as well as numerous languages in Asia and Africa, including Swahili, Yoruba, Armenian, Mandarin, Japanese, Korean, all different languages. And we tend to add 1 to 2 languages per year on that writing and speaking. The reason why we prefer to add writing and speaking is that, to be honest, they're a lot easier to add. You don't have to do as much field testing with those because they're not reading and listening. We've also have a study where we've looked at over 20,000 test instances and found that there is a 90% or higher agreement between reading and writing results and listening and speaking results. So we feel very confident that if a test taker can score a B2 in writing, that their reading is at least a B2 or higher. Same with speaking, if they score a B2 in speaking, that their listening is a B2 or higher, because those skills tend to go together. However, our 4-skill full English test in reading, writing, listening, and speaking for CEFR in English will be released in spring 2023, which is the test we're currently piloting right now. One of the great things about our test is our reporting that the institutions and the groups that use our test have access to. A full test of writing, including writing and speaking, results are ready 5 to 7 days after testing, because the writing and speaking are human rated. They are not computer rated, but they are human rated. And the ratings will be from A1 up to C1. Results can be viewed within a testing group in a number of different ways. You can look at it per language. Let's say you run a language center and you have multiple languages. You can have multiple languages listed in your reporting and look at how groups are doing across languages. You can look at it per class. So you can say, I want to look at all of my first-year students or my second-year students and look at how they're doing across those classes. Or per section, you could say, I want to look at this instructor's section in this class in this language, even down to the student level. And so it all depends on how we set up those testing groups in our reporting system. Group results, again, you can look at the overall data to understand the general proficiency, but you can start to see where you have clusters of test takers and where you have, you start to see that data all over the place. So it could, and we're going to see that test takers and students in different courses perform at different levels. And so you're going to see that there's going to be a spread of where they are on those score levels. And then, of course, it's anonymous data that you can use in reports for either administration or for grant reporting or grant writing. And then we get down to the individual level. You can look at the results per student. You have data per the domain tested and a composite for each student. The composite is just an average of the 4 skills or 2 skills, whatever is available. And as the reporting institution, you have access to what the student provided for writing and speaking. We do rate that, but you as the institution will have access to that. So you could use that for maybe discourse analysis and research, or you could use it to intervene with students if they need particular help in one of those areas. And then what I think is one of the most powerful parts of a reporting system is that individual report that you can print out or pull as a PDF per student. It shows them on the left here how they're doing currently, and on the right, it gives them some of that formative feedback of what they can do to improve to get to that next level. So it's a very powerful document for students to see how they're doing and to prepare for their next steps. And the data can be downloaded into a CSV file. It's number-based, so you could download that and run it through a statistical software for whatever reasons you need. There are some demographic questions we also ask. You can look at time spent per section, all these different things that may be of use for you that you don't see in the system, but only when you download the information. And then we also, once we have enough information, we present yearly data to say the average score of student that takes this test is this at this level and this at that level. So you can use that for comparison purposes. And one thing we really like to see is the test being used as a benchmark because of, it's not that expensive of a test. So people are able to take it multiple times in their learning process over a couple of years to use it for benchmark testing to see how our students are progressing in our programs. We can use that to develop pathways that help students visualize how they can get to a credential in a language. And it can be used by your faculty members to directly work with students on specific domains. And you could say, okay, this year our speaking was low. What do we need to do to improve speaking for the next year? And then again, those individual reports is really powerful, and it gives a student a better understanding of their abilities. And reports provide information that letter grades do not. They may have performed everything perfectly in your class, done all the assignments, but their proficiency may not be where we need it to be, or may be higher than we expect. So grades don't always provide that feedback to students. And we want to see that lead to that credential, that global seal by literacy. These are the pathway awards. So these are the awards that they could get before they reach the first global seal, which is at B1. So the students that are in those early level classes that get discouraged, they don't think they're making progress, you give them the test. If they score an A1 or an A2, provide them this ribbon and say, but there's a pathway to get to the next one, which is that B1 at functional fluency, B2 working fluency, or that C1 at professional fluency. And these are those global seals that students can put on their LinkedIn profile. They can give to their hiring managers. They can provide to graduate institutions or institutions that they want to go to show that they have those language abilities. So as you can see, testing is not just that one and done at the end of a program, or that big one they pay hundreds of dollars for and then take once and then have to go back 6 months later and retake. It can be something used on a more regular basis to provide feedback to both faculty and student. Thank you for your time.
So thank you, Nick, for your great video. So I would like to invite Oksana Ivasiuk from Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and she's going to report on teaching sociolinguistic competence. Oksana?
I'm ready. Now I'm going to share my screen, my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes.
One second. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. So first of all, let me thank you all for coming here today. So let's get started. As you can see on the screen, the topic today is teaching social linguistic competence. Nowadays, the society needs to expand communication ties on the basis of students learning foreign languages, primarily English, as a language of international communication. And for productive communication in a foreign language, it is necessary to have not only grammatical, lexical, and phonetic skills, but there is also need for knowledge of cultural and behavioral norms, language norms. An important task of the learning process is teaching the understanding of foreign speech and communication in a foreign language, taking into account the specifics of the communication situations. So much attention should be paid to developing the ability of students to use and transform language forms in accordance with the situation of communication, mastering situational variants of the language, and developing the ability to respond to the statements of the interlocutor using a variety of speech models.
So we can still see the first slide. Sorry for the interruption, Oksana, right? We are still...
Yeah, and now you have to see the second one, communicative competence.
Yeah, but we still this first one. We can still see the first one. Oh, yes, now we can see. Great, thank you.
Okay. And a prerequisite for successful intercultural communication of representatives of different cultures, it is formed communicative competence, which is a set of knowledge about the language system, its units, their constructions and functioning of speech, ways of formulating thoughts and understanding the judgments of others, national and cultural characteristics of native speakers of the language being studied, as well as the ability of a language learner to communicate by its means in various types of speech activity in accordance with the set of communicative tasks to understand, interpret, and generate coherent statements. So, communicative competence includes a number of competencies, including social linguistic competence. So, and by social linguistic competence, we understand the social linguistic context of the existence of a language and its speakers and speakers. So, this social linguistic competence is the ability to use and transform linguistic forms in accordance with the situations. And this competence contains three main areas of knowledge: cultural, linguocultural, and social-psychological. In addition to the facts of culture, those entering into the intercultural dialogue must master speech etiquette and also to take into account the psychological and social characteristics of each other. So the ability to speak a language that is not one's own has become a vital skill, and the world's politics and economy rely on the ability of individuals to effectively communicate across cultural boundaries. So the key to communication lies in successful expression of one's intended meaning, which is not always as easy as one would hope. All too often, students who have studied a foreign language for years will go to the country where that language is spoken, only to find that despite years of study, so they're still unable to express their meaning to native speakers. To make matters worse, the language learner may say a perfectly grammatical utterance that the native listener can understand, but the speaker might not know the normal social meaning communicated by such an utterance in the circumstances at hand in the target language. So how can language learners avoid such serious breaches in communication? So they can prevent such problems by increasing their level of social linguistic competence. And how does one achieve a high level of this competence? So for students living in the target language culture, it might be assumed that they will acquire social linguistic competence simply by immersion. However, the effect of immersion on social linguistic competence leads them to conclude that the length of stay in a second language environment is beneficial for acquiring the competence, but insufficient and time-consuming. So perhaps classroom instructions is needed in addition to immersion to help students achieve social linguistic competence better and faster. So there are two basic ways of introducing and teaching the competence. One of them is resorting to cultural models where students are explicitly and implicitly taught cultural elements integrate in language use. And integrate, and the second one is integrating speech acts as situations where learners are forced to use language in consideration of socio-pragmatic factors such as social status of the hearer, the degree of imposition, or the content of the request. And classroom environment may not be an appropriate context where social linguistic competence can be developed due to several reasons unique to any learning experience in an EFL context, such as non-authenticity or of the material content or materials. And Major highlights three main reasons why social linguistic competence is not often treated as a topic in its own right and as an indispensable aspect of language teaching. So the first one, so language teachers often think that they do not have time for social cultural teaching due to time constraints in their curriculum. So the next one is that teachers may not have enough confidence in believing that they can teach this aspect of foreign language learning well. And the third one, the teaching of the competence often involves dealing with students' attitudes, which teachers usually find very challenging when trying to guide the students to understand and appreciate the logic and meaning of the target culture. And now let's talk about difficulties of integrating this competence. So this point is categorized under four themes, namely, so the lack of teacher awareness, lack of exposure, to the target culture, teachers and culture, and teacher beliefs and the curriculum. So talking about lack of awareness, so usually non-native EFL teachers don't see the need, and they are just unaware of the importance and have probably received very little, if any, training on how to integrate these skills into a general English proficiency course. Sometimes our teachers are not well aware of the components of the target culture. Okay, and so the reasons for underscoring of their own social linguistic competence are linked to 4 major aspects. So one of the most critical is the confession that the teachers lack knowledge, which can then be connected to lack of exposure and lack of need to teach them, as it's not integrated in the curricula followed. So all 3 can in turn be keys to formation of the teacher beliefs about the relatively less important stages of this competence. Regarding the difficulty the language learners face with the development of social linguistic competence, so the English foreign teachers reported specific causes for the low level of the particular competence. And talking about pedagogical issues, so students are solely learning in a classroom environment and in a test-based system. So the amount of effort to keep up with the books kills any energy needed to socially interact with the language itself. And also, a second. Okay. So EFL teachers, and also you can see here some problems, issues they can face. So EFL teachers relate the learner's failure to 4 major constructs, including pedagogical characteristics. Included pedagogical characteristics, curriculum, and assessment issues, and also personal and contextual constraints. So the major cause is seen as pedagogical, characterizing the context of learning where learners have little chance of interacting with native people in natural settings. And another is the curriculum and assessment issues, showing that top-down decisions for how language will be taught and assessed influences student learning. So the other is personal causes involving teachers and learners, and the former is criticized for not properly understanding the role of the social linguistic competence, whereas the latter is criticized for not putting adequate amount of effort into promoting this competence. So all these factors seem to play a critical role in developing social linguistic competence. As for the effective ways of developing non-native EFL teachers and learners' social linguistic competence, you can see suggestions highlighted on the screen. So the ideas regarding how teaching can help learners promote social linguistic competence can be divided into, I would say, into 3 central themes. One is need for learning context, highlighting the need for exposure to acquire language. So native EFL teachers' perception about foreign language learning imply learners should also be exposed to natural setting where they can interact with the native people, free from being imposed on with summative assessment practices. And another central theme is need for strong focus on explicit teaching of the basic elements of social linguistic competence in formal context. And the other major thing is the need for teachers to be further trained to promote how to teach social linguistic competencies. And if you want to master this competence, you can see here some ideas. I'm sure you do that during the classes. So my own idea, I think that role plays is the most effective one, and also they could be project activities. Okay. And as an example, so I would like to give you different type of competencies we do have in our curricula and syllabus. And you can see different competences we teach our first and second year students. So we do have, we do teach these competencies. Well, and to conclude the presentation, I'd like to say that the importance of social linguistic competence is not limited to the practice of structures and vocabulary in simple and complex exchanges. And this competence is concerned with high thinking competencies through which students demonstrate how they can use language in and outside the classroom, and to prove how they can manage information in the target language. And most importantly, social linguistic competence also has a strong role in the way learners use the language they are learning to enrich the knowledge they possess. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, dear Oksana, for your enlightening speech. There is a question in our chat box. How can social linguistic competence be measured?
Yeah. So since the requirements for the level of proficiency in this competence are somewhat vague, so it's necessary to single out individual components, and I would like to suggest just it can be etiquette formulas, farewell, appeal, gratitudes. Next is just kind of expression of polite request, wishes, interest, and so on. Also, I'd like to suggest congratulations, expressions of regret, use of different kind of language, and also we have to mind register. So it can be formal and informal. And one more I would like to add, understanding the most commonly used set expressions. So it's all these components I would like to single out to assess, and now you can assess the social linguistic competence.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for the detailed answer. Do we have more questions? Okay. So now we will move to Abderazaq Ichou from Morocco. He is a PhD candidate from the University Hassan II in Casablanca. And he's researching a special case in Morocco. So he will report on approaching language revitalization from below. We are happy to listen to you.
Okay, so thank you very much. I hope that my voice is clear. Do you hear me?
Yes, it's clear.
Thank you very much. Okay, so right now I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, please. Yeah, we can see it.
So is it clear now?
It's appearing, yeah, almost done.
Okay, good. Okay, so as you see here, so the title of my presentation is about, I see that it's different from the focus, the whole focus of the conference. So here it's about language planning. Specifically, it's about language revitalization. So the purpose here is to account for the situation of Amazigh language in Morocco, and ending up giving a different view, okay, about language revitalization. That is to say, the case of Amazigh language in Morocco. So this is the outline of my presentation. So I will start by a sociolinguistic overview of the Amazigh language, and then move on to the revitalization of Amazigh and language policy and planning. Then I will talk about the status of Amazigh language, factors affecting its maintenance and transmission, and then move on to talk about new approaches to language revitalization. Specifically here, I'm going to talk about family language policy and its role in maintenance and transmission of Amazigh language. And the last point will be about a suggested new model for language revitalization. So here, let's start. So we talk about the sociolinguistic overview of Amazigh language. So Amazigh language is one of the indigenous languages across the north of Africa in general. So it has three main broad varieties. So we have Tashilhid, Tarifid, and Tamazight. So it has specifically three main varieties. So these varieties here are spoken in different regions in Morocco. So in rural areas, in mountainous or preserved regions, or in cities due to rural exodus, urbanization of Amazigh regions. So these three varieties are marked by mutual unintelligibility. So it's like saying for the far, for example, when you compare the Tashhid and Tarifid, they are far away from each other. That's why they are mutually unintelligible. So speakers don't understand each other, for example, speaking these two varieties. So when we talk about the revitalization of Amazigh language and policy and planning, so we can, historically speaking, we can divide, I mean, the history of revitalizing Amazigh language in Morocco into two phases. So the first phase starts up in 1956 and it lasts until 1999. And this phase here, we could characterize it as marginalization phase. And the second phase, it is marked with recognition. So it's different from the first one because Amazigh language has gained, it's like saying a positive impulse and it has been promoted somehow. So here we're talking about at the institutional level, at the level of laws, and it has been officialized. Because in the last, in the other phase, I mean, in the marginalization phase, Amazigh language was totally degraded and denigrated. I mean, its presence in Morocco is almost absent. Here, so in Morocco, planning Amazigh language revitalization, it takes place, I mean, using a top-down model. So this top-down model or classic approach to language planning, language policy and planning. So according to recent 2000, so here when we talk about classic approach, we talk about its large scale. So it's national planning. It took place in the government and is meant to influence, if not change, ways of speaking or literacy practices within a society. And it has, it's like saying, four major types of planning. We have status planning, corpus planning, and language in education planning, and prestige planning. So these are the focal elements or components of the top-down or the classical approach to language revitalization. So in terms of status planning, again, we have two components. We have selection and implementation. Here we talk about selection. We talk about three main options. So we have Pan-Amazigh, we have the Lake and regional Amazigh. So the language planners adopted a variationist approach in which there is a combination between the varieties of Amazigh. It's like saying the purpose is to base the standardized Amazigh on all the varieties, not selecting one variety over the others. So in the implementation phase, we talk about laws and regulations, and we talk about language in education planning. So laws and regulations, here we'll talk about officialization in 2011. So officialization of language in the constitution. In terms of language in education, it's like saying starting from 2003, Amazigh has been integrated in the Moroccan education system. So the second component, we talk about corpus planning. So corpus planning simply, it's about two components. We have codification and elaboration of the language. So codification, its purpose is to minimize variation in form. That is to say, at the level of graphization. So here we talk about the script. So right now, Amazigh has its own script, which is Tifina script. It's different from the Latin script. And in terms of lexication, so it has its own words, either depending on the Amazigh varieties or borrowing from other languages. It's like saying from French, from Latin, or from Arabic. And we have grammatication. So Amazigh right now has its own grammar books. In terms of elaboration, the second component in terms of corpus planning, it has to do with the functions of the language. So here, the purpose is to maximize variation at the function level. So here, Amazigh, it's like saying serve as a language of science, as a language of economy, of medicine, etc. So here, but the problem with this top-down approach or classical approach is that, according to some figures, leading figures like saying, for example, Spolsky, states that classical approach ignores the existence of language policy and plain other domains. So here it does not, for example, this has adverse impact on the policies designed at the central government level. It's like saying, for example, we have some experiences, for example, in Tanzania, in Malaysia. So the adoption of the top-down approach or the classical approach affected the process of planning. It's like saying here, for example, the family domain, it's one of widely ignored domains in the classical approach. So the classical approach does not take, for example, into consideration that there are planning at other levels, for example, at the level of the family. And here we talk about language transmission and maintenance. So here the top-down approach focus only, for example, on grammar, on standardization, but it does not take into consideration that families no longer use the language, and this is very dangerous for the maintenance and transmission of the language to the future generations. So here, in the case of the Amazigh, again, so we talk about the adoption of a top-down model. So there is a kind of bureaucratic policy, division of work between IRCAM and Ministry of Education. But this approach here ignores the forces at the bottom level. Here we're talking about people's beliefs and attitudes about the Amazigh language. And here there is a gap between language planning and actual practice of language planning. So the purpose is to revitalize the Amazigh language, but in the real life, okay, so the process of revitalization is being blocked, especially at the level of maintenance and transmission within the families. So because people no longer speak within the families, they don't speak the Amazigh language to their children, especially in urban areas, and this is very problematic for the transmission of the language to the next generations. So here, if we want to justify this claim here, so if we talk about the status of Amazigh language right now, according to the current statistics released in 2014, as you see here in the first chart, so Amazigh language compared with Moroccan Arabic, so there is a large difference between the two in terms of the number of speakers. So here we have 27% for Amazigh, and we have 89.9% for Moroccan Arabic. So this is a real problem at the level of transmission and maintenance of the language within the families or at the local level. And it's the same here, the same goes as a written language. Here we're talking about the Amazigh as a written language compared with the dominant language in the Moroccan linguistic market. Amazigh comes at the last position compared with, for example, with Standard Arabic. So almost 99.4% can read and write Arabic, but here when we talk about Amazigh, it's only 2.8%, and this is a problem. Here, now I'm going to move to talk about the factors affecting the maintenance and transmission of the Amazigh language. So the first here is language status. As I said right now, so Amazigh, it's in a minoritized situation. So people, especially in urban areas, are right now start, for example, to use Moroccan Arabic more than Amazigh. However, they are Amazighophone. However, they are Amazighophone in origin, but they speak Moroccan Arabic. And there is this problem of stratification of the linguistic market. So here in Morocco, so the linguistic market is divided into, it's like saying, into different, it's like saying pools. So the first one, we have the oral languages and the written ones. We have the low languages and the high ones, dominate languages and dominated languages. So here we talk about Amazigh. Amazigh is always considered as a low language less adequate, less prestigious compared, for example, with the standard Arabic, which is high, which is a holy language and prestigious language. And it's the same with French and English. And there is this problem of functional diglossia again. So functional diglossia is one of the problems, one of the issues that it's like saying render Amazigh language to be a low language, because all the high functions are being served by the other languages, like saying standard Arabic, French, and English. So at the local level here, we talk about strong presence of Arabophone and Arabized communities. So this situation of language contact always affects the Amazigh language, because it is considered as a weak and a minoritized language in the linguistic market. So here we have different other factors. As I said before, we have status minoritization, we have institutional marginalization and exclusion. So it has been excluded for, it's like saying, for many years. And we have reduction in the number of speakers, and we have low economic weight, and we have lack of intergenerational transmission of the language and culture. So all these factors here affect the maintenance and transmission of the language. So here when we talk about lack of intergenerational transmission, it's a major threat, and it leads to language loss. So according, for example, to Fishman's three generation theory. So we say in the case of Morocco here, especially in urban areas, people, the first generation are Amazigh, the second generation are Amazigh and Arabic, and the third one are Arabic. So this is one of the problems that face the language. So people get rid of or remove the language from the repertoires and adopt Moroccan Arabic at the local level. So this is one of the problems here. So now let's talk about new approaches. So in order to fix this situation here, and to give Amazigh a way in order to get rid or to get out of this situation. So there are other new approaches right now to language revitalization. For example, the ecological approach to language. So this approach here is very feasible and practical, because it promotes linguistic diversity. It grants linguistic human rights to all people. So it does not, for example, degrade or, for example, remove language or promote one language over the other. Here, it focuses on the system internal factors and wider environmental ones. So it does not focus, for example, only on the standardization process and the grammar and lexication and this stuff, but it's the process of revitalizing the language, especially, for example, here we talk about the political, the environmental contact with other languages. And in terms of policy and planning, here the ecological approach does not focus only on the official language policy, but it takes into consideration as well unplanned language planning and language policy at other levels. So this is what makes it to be very important, because the classical approach focuses only on official language policy. So it focuses only on the policies that are designed at the central or the government level. It does not take into consideration unplanned language planning and language policy in other levels. So, for example, here one of the most successful and widely cited approaches that underpins or are part of the ecological approach is Polski's approach to language policy. So here, Polski's focus here is the importance of local context to promote language revitalization. And here his focus is to explain language choice. For example, in the case of Amazigh, why do people choose Arabic and get rid of Amazigh in the Moroccan society? So these are one of the reasons here that can be, that are, it's like saying enough in order to adopt this approach here, is to answer this question here. So why do people adopt one language and not Amazigh language? And here, so it talks about three components of language policy. Here we're talking about language beliefs, language practices, and management. And it studies language policy in terms of domains. So here, domains are interrelated. So one affects the other, and one influence the other. So here, when we talk about language policy, the family language policy and language maintenance and transmission, so there is a kind of a solid relationship between family language policy and language maintenance and transmission. So according to Fishman, so the family language policy is the bedrock of language maintenance, and it is the family is the core of language maintenance and transmission. So here, that's why in terms of the new approach, family has a very important place. So the focus, if we want, for example, to give a new impulse to help the Amazigh language in the future to be maintained and transmitted to the new generations, we should focus on the family and give it great importance. So here, again, Spolsky talked about this point. So he says that the family is very significant and critical because it is the first linguistic environment and the most powerful predictor of language continuity. So if people, for example, stop using the language inside the family, this automatically lead to language loss, because in the future, however, it is taught in schools, but that's not enough. So here we talk about the family language policy. So according to Kurt Christiansen, so it is defined as the practice, deliberate attempt at practicing a particular language use pattern and particular practices within home domains and among family members. So it's focused, as I said before, where some languages are more favorable than others, where some languages are maintained while others are not, where some children become monolingual while others become bilingual, however they live in the same environment, and how do governmental and institutional policies affect family language policies. So here it has three main components: family language practices, family language management, and family language ideologies and beliefs. So the overlap of these components here is what makes people to choose or discard a language. So language beliefs, language practices, and language management. And here we have some factors affecting family language policy. It's like saying again, these are the core. Here we have language ideology, language intervention, and language practices. And we have some internal factors and external factors. So internal factors, it means emotion, identity, family culture and tradition, parental impact, belief, and child agency. So all these factors here either promote the maintenance or results in the shift to another language. And we have, again, the external factors: political, sociocultural, economic, and sociolinguistical factors. So as the last point in this presentation, so I have here suggested a new model for language revitalization. As you see here, the model starts from below, from here. So I think that for the Amazigh language, to guarantee its revitalization, we need to adopt a heuristic approach. I mean here the ecological approach, which take into consideration not only the language internal characteristics here, not only at the level of standardization, grammatication, and other stuff, but we need to study the language and its relationship to its environment. We need to take into consideration all the factors that affect the language. Here we talk about the language contact and the competition with other languages. Especially here we talk about Moroccan Arabic, Standard Arabic, French, and English. And then at the second level, we move on to study language policy and language choice. So why do people, for example, choose Moroccan Arabic, not Standard, not Amazigh? Why do people, for example, choose Standard Arabic, not Amazigh? And here we focus on three main components: language ideologies and beliefs, language practices, and language management. And then we move on to study the languages according to domains. So here, this is the implementation level. So we should study it in terms of domains. Here we talk about the family domain, the educational domain, work domain, landscape domain, all these domains here, we should study the external factors that affect these domains and the internal factors. And then we end up with a whole project, which is revitalizing the Amazigh language. And here are some references that I have seen there. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope that it was clear. Your questions are welcome.
Thank you, dear Abderazaq. It was amazing, such a detailed approach to your research. Do you have any questions? Yes, please. Okay. How much time does it take to get a PhD degree in Morocco?
It's normally it's 3 years, but you could, for example, have an extension for 4 or 5 years. So 3 years is the normal time.
So we wish you success, and thank you for coming, and thank you for being with us today. And
sorry, can I have?
Yes, sure.
Can I have a word, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So how are you, everybody? I hope you are doing very well. Abderazaq, you are doing great. You did great in this presentation, in your research. It was really amazing.
Thank you very much,
it's really amazing. We got very insightful points there. You are shedding enough light on the status and situation of Amazigh in Morocco compared with the other languages such as Moroccan Arabic, English, French, etc. So the model you suggested is just, I mean, you are the one who is aware of it, much of us here. We hope that in coming days, you're going to make us, I mean, to enrich us with enough, I mean, details and information about this approach to revitalize the Amazigh language in Morocco. Just a question, Abderazaq. Just, I mean, to enrich the discussion with questions. Just a question. So, do you mean that doing without, or I mean, discarding the classical model of top-down policy in Morocco, for example, in the case of Amazigh, do you mean that this, if we discard this model, we are going to opt for, I mean, this ecological approach alone? Okay, is it going to do, I mean, a good job to revitalizing Amazigh, or do we need to make, I mean, to combine the two? I mean, or should we combine the two models, the top-down, the classical, and the ecological? I hope you got my question, Abderazaq.
Yes, it's clear, Ibrahim. Thank you very much for this pertinent question. So here, it's not discarding the classical approach, because here the ecological approach is in fact combining, okay, between it's like saying the official language policy, the unplanned language planning, and language policy in other levels. So this is one of the main characteristics of the ecological approach. So it does not take into consideration only the top-down framework, but it combines between all the other elements, I mean, left by the classical approach. So this is one of the strong points of the ecological approach. It combines between the official language policy, I mean, what is done at the central, at the government level, the unplanned language planning, and language planning at other levels. So this is the idea.
Yeah, so it combines the two, okay?
Yes, it's a combination of the two. Actually, it's not discarding or removing one and adopting on the other, but it's like saying it's a combination between all these models here.
Yeah, very good, Abderazaq. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibrahim. You're welcome.
Okay, let's give the floor to Kateryna Riabova. It's a practical speech, the final speech for today, and she's going to speak about Miro board and how she's applying this application with her students and with some practical examples. Kateryna, we are looking forward to listening to your wonderful speech.
Okay. Wait a minute, I will share my screen.
Yes, Kateryna is a lecturer from Igor Sikorsky Kyiv Polytechnic Institute.
Okay, it's ready, yes?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Welcome to Miro board. My name is Kateryna Riabova, and today I will introduce this presentation to you. Online teaching has been extremely difficult and challenging for most educators and students. Most schools and professors have had a hard time making the concept work since they may face many challenges, including unreliable internet connections, lack of gadgets, effective tools, and adapting new learning methods. Numerous online, offline applications can help you in teaching. For example, Quill has a set of tools for teaching, writing, vocabulary, grammar, and includes over 400 exercises. Or TED Talks, where you can use videos from industry experts and innovators on science. Well-known Kahoot, which is a game-based learning platform that lets you create fun learning games. However, I want to tell you about my favorite online application, Miro board. In my presentation, I will explain how to join and work there. Then I will illustrate Miro's tools, how to download the video, and send the spreadsheet to your students. And in the end, I will show my boards. Let's start. Step number 1. You may use the board online or download the application on your device. I have Miro on all my gadgets. Signing up with a Google account is the easiest way for you and your students. After this, you will get your account in Miro. You can see all your boards, which can each be devoted to a different project. Let's talk about the boards and Miro and what you can create with them. First of all, Miro board has user-friendly navigation. When you start a new board, you can choose from one of their pre-built templates or continue without one spread. Also, you can use cases such as mapping, retrospectives, brainstorming, and strategic planning. If you're wondering what you can do with Miro, start by exploring the templates. You see that board has a history. As for me, it's very useful feature because with this help, I can follow for my students what they did. You may save it as a custom template and send it to your group, or just share this board with all participants. Now I will demonstrate how to upload the video and materials to it. Then we will save it. So I click on the 3 dots on the toolbar, choose upload via URL, copy paste the link from YouTube, and wait some seconds. Okay, it's ready. And now one more time. But now I click upload documents from my laptop, and all materials will be downloaded. Now we will export this board. I save it as image. And now you can send it to your students. I choose my board and export. As you see, it's quite easy to manipulate. And as I promised, I show my boards and my experience working with this application. Here I used brainstorming template to show the difference between 4 past tenses and present perfect. I gave examples of each tense and used different sticky notes for the best understanding. And another variant of brainstorming template. On the left side, I wrote rules when we use infinitive. And on the right side, my students wrote their own examples on each point, the easiest way to check their knowledge. Miro is a simple and intuitive digital whiteboard designed for collaboration. Its outstanding features are its many existing templates and a movable sticky notes function, which are useful for getting projects started quickly and keeping them organized. This makes Miro a tool that can help you incorporate group activities into your online teaching, which can allow students to combine their efforts in cross-checking each other's work, making your online teaching more engaging. These templates can be useful for helping students visualize concepts better by drawing connections between the topics, making online learning more fruitful. By the way, exactly this type of template is my favorite one. A group of students can cooperate with each other to show their activity and imagination, and at the same time, easily check their writing. And the last one word for today, it is an instruction how to write a CV. I used here sticky notes, shapes, frames, and lines, and uploaded one picture. About my board, it is a context. Then I show the difference between CV and the resume. After it, I explain the structure of CV, each step with details and examples. Miro also has infinity whiteboard, so you will never run out of whiteboard space, providing you with more freedom and less disruption during your online teaching. For its free version, because there is a paid version, Miro offers 3 whiteboards per account and does not require viewers to sign up. I hope this information will be useful for you and your lessons. And as Albert Einstein once said, I never teach my pupils. I only attempt to provide the conditions in which they can learn. Thank you for your attention. And if you have some questions, shall I demonstrate my board to answer them if you need it?
Do you have any questions? What is your favorite template in Miro?
Oh, it's Miro. It was my favorite project, brainstorming with my students. This one, it was last year with my third course students. They created a project about their energy company in Ukrainian. And they compared different companies, Energoatom, the Tech, General Energy, as I remember, right? Something like this. So this one, the favorite one. And of course, CV instruction. Also favorite one because it's a long time working with this instruction.
Thank you, dear Kateryna, for sharing your knowledge with us. It's so inspiring. Do you have more questions?
Kateryna, can you explain what is the difference between free and paid version of Miro?
Okay, in paid version, you have unlimited boards, because in free version, it's only 3 that you can add it all the time, yes? But I ignored these rules and I created a lot of them. And also in paid version, you can use voting, video conferencing, and some other templates. Maybe. That's it.
Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your attention.
That's really a disadvantage that you can only have 3 whiteboards, because I also gave my students the assignment to create a mind map, and I wanted to create mind map for each group, and I have 8 of them, and I could only create 3, so it was a disappointment for me.
Sometimes, yes, but I had a lot of them, so it's normal.
Thank you, dear speakers. speakers from different countries. We are so happy that we managed to have this conference today, despite of the difficulties, despite of the blackouts. And we hope all the presentations and discussions you heard today will become a source of inspiration for your future work in this sphere. Thank you very much for all your contributions, attention, and discussion, for your comments, for being active, for being real volunteers. Thank you so much. The conference continues with our meeting in October next year after the victory of Ukraine. I hope to see you all there. Thank you for your time and attention.
One moment, there was a question if you award certificates of attendance.
Yes, of course. All people who submitted their conference abstracts will get the certificate emailed. If you only attended the conference, you can write your email now in our chat box and we will send you the certificate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening and see you next year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.